This has been by far the most underwhelming and disappointing DLC I have ever seen in a Sword Online game, despite the fact that the devs really set up a low bar by having no promotional activities or launch streams and the like. And that's still pretty much it, really. I don't know what I expected from the second Ritual of Bonds DLC, but pretty much every single complaint I had back in the first one more or less remains exactly the same with absolutely zero changes. So if you want a more structured video going through all my complaints, just go ahead and check that DLC 1 video. If you just want to hear me ramble, stay in this one. It's gonna be the exact same complaints. At their core, Ritual of Bonds Part 1 and Part 2 are basically 5-minute bed scenes that are sandwiched in between half an hour long non-story sections of chores. Which is kind of a huge shame because we were coming at the tail end of Alicization Lycoris, which arguably, in my opinion, had the best SAO bed scenes ever in the SAO Gameverse series. You know, diving into experiences, traumas, motivations, life goals, and all that kind of stuff for all of these characters. And then we come over here to Last Recollection's Ritual of Bonds DLCs, 2 chapters, both of which are paid, and then we get the most disappointing bed scenes we have ever seen in the SAO game series. Let me start from the beginning. We have this contrived story that takes place before the ending of the game, so it's completely filler that does not affect anything at all, where we have to visit this dungeon with 9 different characters to charge these egg things that are supposed to be filled with spatial resources that cures the dark territory somewhat. That has absolutely no significance in the story because it takes place way before the ending of the game. Nothing changes, nothing happens, it's just a filler story. And as you go through the dungeon, you basically have a half an hour section where you're exploring the dungeon with your partner character, then take a step back, have 5 minutes of a bed scene with your partner character, and then go back into the dungeon, which is around 15 to 20 minutes of final kind of content to, you know, wrap up your journey with a specific character. You rinse and repeat this with 8 other characters, and then finally you pick one character, go back into the dungeon, marry that character, well, pseudo-marry, I guess. That's pretty much a wrap on the story, and I say story with not quite committing to that word because during that dungeon run, nothing happens. Across all 9 characters, the dialogue is basically copy-pasted across with minor word changes, which is exactly why my initial thought for this review was just upload the exact same DLC 1 review, but just change the color coding, something in the back. Maybe have color black show up as yellow or something in the background and call it a day, as would be fitting. But then I thought, hey, that's a bit too mean. I will just share my criticisms. I'm just incredibly disappointed with these bed scene DLCs. It just leaves such a sour taste in my mouth that I just want to look forward and be excited about Fractured Daydream, that seems to be developing really well and was extremely exciting back during the beta period. I have an entirely separate review on the beta period of that game. I strongly recommend you look forward to it as well because it's gonna be really fun from the looks of it. But I what am I supposed to say about this DLC? I go into the dungeon every single time, characters say the exact same things, we do a puzzle that is not even a puzzle where the character says, hey, I think it is this door. Why do you think it is that door? Gut feeling. I think you're wrong. I think I'm right. And then you go to the door that the character has just said, and yes, they were indeed right. Their explanation, no, it does not make any sense because that wasn't a puzzle to begin with. That was just filler dialogue to give you 10 minutes of additional chore time. After you go through the puzzle, you encounter a mini-boss section where Kirito talks about, oh, how hard are these monsters, be careful, be careful. But hey, those monsters, they are easier than the ones you fought during the puzzle section, so good luck making that sound convincing. And then you go even more forward, you defeat a boss. The bosses are fine, but they are the bosses from the main campaign actually across the world. Can't really harp on that too much, that is fine in my opinion, but if the same boss repeats twice or thrice in the exact same DLC, hey, maybe recolor some other bosses instead. You go into the dungeon, everybody is surprised that their clothes are changing. Their explanation is always the same because, you know, there's a dungeon that tests the compatibility of the duo that goes in. It's always the exact same same explanation, it's just different words, even though every single character is supposed to say their own opinion and reflect on their own experiences and all that kind of stuff. It's all the same thing, just with different words. Barely any different words, I should add. Then we have this little WoW thing, and it spawns the little egg, same as DLC1. We go back, we have a bed scene, and I will say this. I had 2 or 3 actually interesting bed scenes this time around. It's actually the same number as the first one, but they are always the highlights because they dive into the actual experiences and pasts of these characters or do something creative. The first one was, of course, Yu-Gi-Oh, because they have a very strong bond with Kirito, and even if you try to remove that bond, you know, it still shows. These 2 characters, Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh, they are a lovely time to have around, and they did that well in my opinion with the pillow fight and all that kind of stuff. Not the epitome of creativity, yes, but it's nice and it is fun. Secondly, it was Lifa, and Lifa actually extends as the only person that extends that energy and flair and character personal behavior into the dungeon run as well as the little sister of Kirito. I think that was very valuable, and Lifa overall featured the best story, I'll say, the best run through of the dungeon and the entire DLC. In my opinion, Lifa was the best one on that front. They really highlighted that sisterly bond she has with Kirito nicely. And the third one, it was Yuki's bed scene, which Yuki and Kirito are not the closest friends, of course, so drawing that conversation over to something related to Asuna, that was a really nice choice, where both characters had something to elaborate upon. However, I am kind of salty about the fact that we just have a blank transition from the beginning of the conversation to the end of the conversation, where we don't get to hear what they talked about Asuna. I think that was a bit of a shame. I was like, oh yeah, this bed scene is actually really good, and I'm like, you know, you actually skipped the part where it would be the best stuff. So, not the best choice, but hey, the bed scene itself was good, so thumbs up on that. Everyone else, it was uninspired in my opinion, same as DLC1, and you could see when it is going to be uninspired as well. When you see a character just hold the egg, talk about how warm it is, how it must be filled with hopes and dreams, how they want to save the world. If they're talking about saving the world, that means they had a generic conversation and they did not have the personality of the characters to actually alter the conversation into something more meaningful. It's just the most generic explanation that has nothing to do with the characters, you know. I'm fine with characters wanting to save the world, that is why we're doing this, of course, but hey, if Alice is there, maybe talk about Alice's past, maybe talk about Selka, maybe talk about Tsuberg. Something personal. That's what the bed scenes were about. Whereas bed scenes here in this DLC, you're basically paying for the image. Nothing else. There is no interesting story or conversation going on. They're just completely empty. And what they did with Kureha and Zeliska, it is commendable because the Fatal Bullet original character fans, I want to say, I don't want to make a blanket statement on all the original character fans, of course, but hey, the vocal ones are some of the most rabid fans I have ever seen. You know, if I wanted to be kind and understanding, I'd say, hey, they are just incredibly passionate fans who are just a tad bit salty about not having a customizable character anymore. But no, when you go over to separate videos on my channel to talk about how Bandai Namco is screwing you over by not having a custom character from Fatal Bullet in your game where the character does not even belong to, hey, you're kinda harassing. Anyways, what the developers did with Kureha and Zeliska is they actually recognized this fact that, hey, it would be a bit in bad taste if Kureha and Zeliska from Fatal Bullet have a bed scene with Kirito. So what they did was they end up sleeping early before Kirito even arrives, and they have a dream about the Fatal Bullet protagonist being in Underworld instead, having a conversation with them in their dreams, and that's how they fuel the egg thingy. And at the end, with their WoWs, they actually include their friend and the GGO players in their WoW additionally as well. Good touch. The problem is, the Fatal Bullet original character is such a terribly written character that whenever someone has to interact with this mute character with zero personality. We no longer experience anything from Kureha or Zeliska. What we experience is them talking about what kind of a character the OC is. And my god, I really don't like it when that happens. I want to spend the time with that character. I don't want to spend time them telling me what kind of a person I am, trying to convince me that my character has a personality, because obviously he doesn't if they're trying so hard to project the personality onto my custom character. Don't do that. And yeah, I guess they're not gonna be doing that anymore anyway. So why? I don't like the implementation of the Fatal Bullet OC back in Fatal Bullet or in this game. If you want to see a perfectly done custom character that is completely mute, well, borderline completely mute, we have Integral Factor, great job on that one. I just want to have a custom character where I can project what I want to project without other characters telling me what kind of a person I am and how much like Kirito I am. Just stop, don't do that. Either way, the Kureha and Zeliska bet scene, they just showed once again how bad of a narrative concept the OCMC from Fatal Bullet is, and I am glad they finally showed that one last time, you know? It's just, if we're gonna have a mute OC, please let's do it properly, not like that. But yeah, what else is there to say? What's the point of this video? The bet scenes should have been part of the game. They should not have 2 sections of half an hour sandwiching together a 5-minute bet scene. The bet scenes themselves should have delved deeper into the personalities, motivations, life goals, pasts of these characters, the same way Alicization Lycoris did. Alicization Lycoris bet scenes were perfect. Why not just carry that on? Why do I have to go through 18 times this bet scene where 12 of these characters, the only thing they say is, hey, I want to save this world. Yes, how do we save this world? We lie on the bed, we talk, this thing warms up and apparently fills with energy. We save the world. What is this generic conversation? That's it. This has been a generic review of Ritual of Bonds Part 2. As I said, if you want a more structured, more well thought out review, Part 1, it's the exact same. Go watch that one. It's gonna be less rambly than this. And now, I look forward to Fractured Daydream. That is actually looking like a great game. I want to learn more about that game. Bandai Namco, please tell us more about that game. It's supposed to come out in fall 2024 according to Bandai Namco US. If that is true, we need to learn a little bit more as to what kind of a game it is going to be overall. So please let us know more about that incredible looking game that was incredibly fun back in the beta. I really want to have more chances to learn about that game, play that game. Bandai Namco Germany, you know, feel free to invite me in playtests or something. I will be very glad to have a little trip into Germany in the meanwhile. That's gonna relieve some stress from my master's thesis right now. And aside from that, thank you very much for watching. Lens Squad, among other channel merch. My hair is really growing long. Channel merch available on my Teespring page. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for bearing with my rambling. And that's all I have to say about Ritual of Bonds. I really want to leave Last Recollection behind me, but I can't because I have to do the character events that I couldn't do for a very long time already. Stay cool and take care.